To help us celebrate Zahara's life, let's welcome South African singer, songwriter and artist Nathi Mankayi, popularly known as Nathi. Nathi, welcome to Pitso on SABC Lehae. Let's just start by how you feeling after you heard that Zahara has left us. We seem to be having an issue of connection with Nathi. But I believe we're going to keep trying him. Nathi, can you hear me now? All right, we seem to be having a problem with connection with Nathi, but we believe our producers are working hard to make sure that we have this conversation where we'll be celebrating the life and career of singer Zahara. Okay, I've just been told that Nathi is back on the line. Nathi, welcome to Pitso and SABC Lehae. Let's start. What were you feeling when you heard that Zahara is no more?
Butama akumnandanga kuthi sonke sophuke inhliziyo bese ngayilindelanga indaba kaZahara uba angaba usile namhlanje. Sothukile kakhulu mina ndigqibele esesibhedlele. Bengicinga ukuyombona but ke bekukhona indaba zoba akuvumelekanga ubana ngabe kuye wonke umuntu. So izolo ekuseni ndothuswa zezo ndaba uzoba uZahara uye wasishiya, so akukho mnandi.
Let's talk about your relationship with Zahara as an artist, perhaps maybe as a brother or as a friend. How was it? How can you describe it?
Ubudlelwane bethu noZahara benifana nobhuti wakhe omdala because tayinibiza ibesithi bhuti omdala. Benhlonipha kakhulu ubhuti wami. Benisiya kuye xa ngaba nikhathazekile i-industry inophula umoya. Ndiyayazi uba nizawukhuthazeka and uyayazi uba nam ndizamkhuthaza ngezinye izinto. Uyabo, so kunzima kakhulu man, kunzima.
Nathi, you hail from the Eastern Cape, and you know, when we remember, Zahara broke, into the industry in 2011, and then you came after her. So when you look at somebody coming from the Eastern Cape doing all or achieving what she was achieving, did that play a role in inspiring you to also say, you know what, I also want to follow in her footsteps?
Kakhulu bhuti wami, ubuya umamela umculo wethu isikakhulu emveni koZahara. uZahara nguye osivulele indlela, usibonisile uba yenziwa kanjani le nto, nguye okwazileyo ukuthatha lo mculo waphesheya wawuzisa. Kangangoba mna ndandisithi nguTracy Chapman uqala kwam ukumva, uyabo. So usivulele indlela kakhulu bhuti wami, usikhuthazile, udlale indima enkulu ebomini bethu. Kule nto siyenzayo namhlanje kungenxa yakhe.
And also, when I listen to your music, you embrace isiXhosa in your music. And also, when you listen to Zahara, most of your music is in isiXhosa. What would you say, what's the importance of, you know, young artists preserving language through music or art?
And kubalulekile kakhulu bhuti wami uba ube nguwe, because xa ubonisa uba unguwe, ungayifihli le nto uyiyo, kulula ubana ngaba nabanye abantu mabakhuthale, because ekugqibeleni senzela abantwana esibashiya emakhaya ukuthi bakhuthale, bayazi uba iyenzeka le nto. Ungazami kakhulu uba yinto ongayiyo, but kuba lula xa uvezela abantu le nto yiyo, uyabo.
Yeah. And how would you want South Africans to celebrate Zahara's legacy? Because, you know, she's given us hits from Loliwe, from Ndiza. She's really, you know, consoled us with her music.
Yeah.
Apologies for that. I think we had an issue with connection. I wanted to know, how would you want South Africans to continue celebrating the legacy of Zahara?
And it's sisizwe simkhumbule ngomculo wakhe, simkhumbule because bensitsho uba.
All right, we are struggling. I think we have an issue there with the line of Nathi. All right, we unfortunately have to end the interview here because we are struggling to connect with Nathi. But that is an artist talking about, the life of Zahara and how he inspired or she inspired him. For more on this, we're joined by Dr. Fikile Vilakazi. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us on Pitso on SABC Lehae. The IFP has held its conference after 15 years, first since 15 years back. What kind of an IFP are we likely to see going forward?
Good morning to viewers at home and good morning to you in the studio. You know, this is a reawakening for the Inkatha Freedom Party after the passing of its icon, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. I think that this policy conference in particular is showing us that, they are sort of rethinking and reorganizing themselves and perhaps even repositioning themselves in some way, in ways that they've not been able to do. Under the leadership of the Prince, he has been a charismatic leader, and there have been some issues around succession within the political party, debates that range from, that have been raging since the 80s. So this policy conference is a sign then that perhaps the Inkatha Freedom Party is thinking strongly about coming back into the political arena in a more forceful manner than they have been doing. So we are likely then to see Inkatha Freedom Party that is more engaging within communities, that is more pushy in the political space in terms of debate, in terms of ideological dialogues, but perhaps also in terms of service delivery. And what I imagine also happening, especially with the judgment of the courts around the Zulu Kingdom, I noticed also how their response has been in that regard, sort of saying, let us give the royal family a place here to decide. So we are also likely to see Inkatha Freedom Party that is non-aligned to a certain extent with the politics of the royal kingdom, but more perhaps drawing themselves deeper into the politics that are about centering the people of South Africa, more about service delivery to the people of South Africa in a manner that we have not seen before. So that is what I anticipate, given the discussions in the conference yesterday, but also just in the last couple of weeks that we've seen since the passing of the Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi.
You spoke about Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi being a charismatic leader. Now that he has passed, do you think, the IFP still has more support? And leading to the elections next year, do you think they will have more support?
That depends. The landscape of politics in the country has changed drastically, so for all political parties, including Inkatha Freedom Party, especially KwaZulu-Natal. Let us look at the performance of Inkatha Freedom Party since 1994. Inkatha Freedom Party has been majority in KZN. Just when we transitioned from apartheid to democracy, they occupied more than 50%, in the legislature, in the government of KwaZulu-Natal. But subsequent to that, all elections that followed up to the one that we're going, up to 2019, they have been declining. So, and power has been shifting between the IFP and the ANC in the province. And the politics have shifted. The coming in of the economic freedom fighters has changed the dynamic as well. The rising of the Democratic Alliance in KwaZulu-Natal in particular, in terms of the voter numbers, has also changed the dynamic. So it is not clear-cut for Inkatha Freedom Party that they will then immediately regain that power in 2024. We have seen in the by-elections in KwaZulu-Natal, the dance between the ANC power and the IFP power, where certain municipalities, have been lost by the IFP, for instance, over time to the ANC. They've recently regained some of those territories. So it really depends. I think it will depend on their aligning themselves with a stronger faction, stronger partners in the coalition. Perhaps they will need to maximize the power of the multi-party charter that they've signed, that they are party to. They really need to befriend those political parties who are members of the multi-party charter in a more stronger way, particularly those that share ideological similarities with them, like the DA. Because the Inkatha Freedom Party and the DA are very similar on so many levels around, right-wing politics, but also politics around, ideologically, they believe in democratic federalism, which is about taking the services to the people in as local a manner as possible, in self-governance of provinces and local municipalities. So all of that will depend on their ability to convince the voter about that particular shift, because the voters of South Africa, as much as we are struggling, we're sort of also used to this dynamic that the ANC has presented to the nation of centralization of services from national government. So everybody's demanding national government to serve the people. And we have seen even the opposition parties like Inkatha Freedom Party taking that kind of positionality, staying on the pavements when it comes to service delivery. But they would then need to show voters how will, as Inkatha Freedom Party, deliver directly services to the people without demanding it from national government. What is their program of action? What is the actual practical thing that they're going to do for the people? And they would need to not just show it as a promise, but from where they have governed. And I've been pointing to say they would need to draw a lot from the experiences of their leadership in Ulundi. In particular, I think Ulundi has got some kind of pointers for the voter to say, this is what we've done as Inkatha Freedom Party. They can draw on that in a very strong way and show the voter. So I anticipate an IFP that is really likely to then come stronger in those ways if they maximize those opportunities. But also, my thinking is that Inkatha needs to strongly strengthen its ideological standpoint when it comes to decentralization of power. Right? They mustn't just talk it, but they also need to implement it within their structures as Inkatha Freedom Party. There have been a lot of conversations that led to the breaking up of Inkatha Freedom Party and the NFP over the years, as we know, the National Freedom Party, led by Umama Uzanele Magwaza, around issues of succession, around the role of women in Inkatha Freedom Party, around issues of transformation within the political party and decentralization of power. And that is not something that started with Umama Uzanele Magwaza. It started in the 80s with a report that was produced by one of their veterans where he started to raise these questions of iconizing the late Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. So they would still need to really show the voter that in as much as they're talking about decentralization of power, they are actually meaning it, even in the reorganization of their structures, the role of the young people, bringing Inkatha Youth Brigade more stronger in the politics and the leadership of the organization, not just within the structures of Inkatha Freedom Party and the branches, but also in parliament, in the legislature, in government.
All right, Doctor.
So it seems to me,
Doctor, just
that this conference. Oh, sorry, I can't hear you very well. Sorry.
All right, I think you've said a mouthful on that. You've gave a comprehensive response to that question. But you mentioned something about the MultiParty Coalition, which the youth wing of the IFP seems to be against, because they are saying this is against our resolutions as a party. How is this likely to affect the stability of the IFP?
Yeah, we are going to see the young brigade rising higher and stronger in terms of agitation within the structures of Inkatha Freedom Party in a more public way, perhaps in a more visible way than we've seen under the leadership of the Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, especially because of this difference of opinion around the role and the participation of IFP within the charter. I think the youth does not want to see an organization that will sort of lose its power, number one, its autonomy, and be swallowed by the charter. That's the one thing. But also they seem to be very skeptical. They also want to be flexible in positioning themselves within the inevitable politics of coalitions that are coming up in 2024. And they don't want to then see IFP being compromised by saying, you have been sleeping in the same bed with certain political parties or members of the charter. And should it happen that those members don't gain popularity in 2024, they would then need to renegotiate with those who are in power and have more numbers to be then partners in the coalition. And the young people, I think, seem to be skeptical to say, if we are really committing ourselves through this charter in these ways, we may actually be shooting ourselves on the foot and not be able to negotiate with EFF, for instance, or negotiate with the ANC, should they actually garner more numbers in KwaZulu-Natal or elsewhere in the province, especially where the Inkatha Freedom Party wants to go beyond the borders of KwaZulu-Natal. And I foresee then that probably could be a bone of contention within the party. It may even lead to ideological divisions as we go along, depending on how they handle this matter at conference. But I heard the leader, Ubaba Uhlabisa, saying that the young people should not be scared, in that the participation in the multi-party charter at the moment is not a kind that compromises the individuality and the autonomy of Inkatha Freedom Party as an organization towards 2024. They still maintain that. But it's not clear in terms of how then that gives them an opportunity to negotiate themselves outside of the arrangements of the charter, should the ANC and the EFF coalition government gain the numbers. And I think chances are that the ANC and the EFF are likely to get more numbers than other smaller parties in 2024. And I think we're in for a surprise here, something I have been predicting to say, I foresee a stronger coalition happening between ANC and EFF, and I know they are sort of not seeing eye to eye. But again, they are similar, as Inkatha and EDA. ANC and EFF have similar ideological standpoints. They just differ in terms of how to implement, and in a similar way as Inkatha Freedom Party. But when it comes to elections in 2024, I suspect the voter outcomes is going to tell us that the charter and the pact of the multi-party that is led by the DA may have to negotiate themselves back to the hands of the ANC and the EFF, particularly Inkatha Freedom Party. And I think that's what the Youth Brigade is trying to say. Let us be cautious in the manner that we engage with the multi-party charter processes so that we don't compromise ourselves in this regard.
So, Doctor, one of the issues discussed was about moving the legislature from Pietermaritzburg to Ulundi. What difference would this make, since Ulundi is considered to be IFP's homeland before 1994?
I can't hear anything from your side. I hear someone is talking, but I don't hear the voice. Sorry.
All right. I was saying one of the issues discussed was to move the legislature from Pietermaritzburg to Ulundi. What difference will this make, since we know that Ulundi is considered to be the homeland of the IFP since before 1994?
Well, I mean, Ulundi is a stronghold of the IFP. So obviously, strategically for them, they would want to have the legislature at a place where they have numbers, where they are able to get their people engaging with the legislative processes. So it's a strategic thing for them to do. At the moment, if you have the legislature in Pietermaritzburg, there are issues around costs, issues around accessibility, but also just around the involvement of the masses in the decision-making processes of Parliament in KwaZulu-Natal. So I think if you move, if they succeed to push for a move of the legislature into Ulundi, the IFP stands to gain more, because then what you are doing in that way, you are bringing politics closer to the people that matter to the IFP comparatively speaking, if you put it in other sub-regions. So that's to their favor. It works, but whether it would work or not, it depends really, how it works in government and in Parliament, on the power of the voter within the legislature. They would need to make sure that they secure more seats in the legislature to influence that debate and to gain the votes, either as an individual party, as IFP gain more numbers. I doubt. IFP is sitting at 14% now, from 52% in 1994. Chances of them gaining the numbers to be able to make that decision, to influence those decisions, are slim. So they need to count on the numbers of the multi-party partners or of the coalition members, whoever becomes a member of the coalition. And it's a dicey politic, as we all know. At the moment, maybe they also need to strengthen the coalition's framework that we have in the country now as a draft in some way, to say, start really seriously thinking about how to position themselves within the coalition politics. It's inevitable, and this is something I've been saying to all political parties. We need to have political parties that are matured in 2024. Political maturity is deeply essential. Sharing of power is inevitable. All political parties, including Inkatha Freedom Party, would need to really imagine a KwaZulu-Natal that is led maturely from a place of power sharing, and there's no other way. Our political parties have got to grow. Our democracy is maturing, and I think they need to follow suit. And that then may be a disappointing outcome for them, because in a power sharing arrangement, it may be that you may not get a legislature that is being moved to Ulundi and maybe elsewhere.
Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, thank you so much for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
That was our political analyst, Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, talking to us about the IFP's policies leading to the general elections in 2024. Right.